Welcome vintage camera lovers, and travel back with me to the year 2000, where you find yourself shopping for a digital camera built for the new millennium. Now, some bloke called Gordon Lane just reviewed the new Nikon COOLPIX 990 in PCW magazine and reckons, and I quote, "If you've got £850 to spend on a high-end digital camera, this is the one to get." Sounds pretty decisive, right? So let's fast forward a quarter of a century to see if he still feels the same way. The COOLPIX 990, or E990, was the third of four models in the COOLPIX 900 series, all sharing a similar twisting body design. While a similar concept was first seen on the Agfa ePhoto 1280 back in 1997 and also employed by multiple rivals, I don't think it's unfair to say that Nikon was the company which took that particular ball and really ran with it. The story of this series began with the original COOLPIX 900 in 1998, before being revamped 1 year later into the 950 with a much more professional look and feel. I have separate videos about both of these cameras if you're interested. Across the series, the right hand side, as you held it, housed the batteries, card, screen and controls, while the left hand side contained the lens, flash, sensor and optical viewfinder. You'd grip onto the right half with the batteries providing a nice counterbalance, while twisting the left hand side for more comfortable composition, high or low, or even back towards yourself for selfies. I love the design and operation both then and now. The COOLPIX 990 was announced in early 2000 at a price of around $900 or £850 and was Nikon's first digital compact with a 3.34 megapixel sensor, a substantial boost over the 2.1 megapixels of its predecessor. Fast forward to the present day and you can pick them up on eBay for around $40 or pounds, so let's see what that gets you. At first glance, the 990 on the right looks a lot like the earlier 950 on the left. Beyond the greyer finish of the newer model, they're pretty similar in size and proportions, but look a little closer and there's some key changes. Most obviously, the grip on the 990 has become more pronounced and features a broader rubberized surface, making it more comfortable and secure in your hands. Note the coloured oval inside the grip, blue for US versions and red for everywhere else. I prefer the red, what about you? The 990 is still powered by a set of 4 AA batteries, but pushes their position out into the grip. Nikon supplies a set of nickel metal hydride batteries and a mains recharger, but it also works fine with alkalines if you find yourself caught out. Meanwhile, the compact flash card slot has sensibly relocated from the base of the 950 to the grip side of the 990 and now lies behind a proper door rather than a rubber flap. Sadly, it remains Type 1 only, so the thicker Type 2 microdrives won't squeeze in, and it's also a little awkward to grip normal cards for removal. The slot's new position does however mean that you can now access it when the camera is mounted on a tripod, and speaking of which, the actual tripod thread itself is now made of metal and is shifted back towards the centre of the body with a generous rubber surround, making it much more stable than the 950. While we're looking behind flaps, the 990 repositions most of its ports. The previous 950 positioned its DC input and video output behind a flap uncomfortably located on the top of the camera. Now the 990 has its DC input on the front, while the 3.5mm composite video output joins the digital I/O port on the side. In an important upgrade, the 990 ditches the old serial data port of the 950 to become Nikon's first digicam with a new USB port. Before you get too excited though, this uses a proprietary connector, so you're going to need the official cable designed for it. Connected to your computer, and the supplied Nikon View software won't mount the camera as a drive, but it does let you drag and drop images. There's also an optional MCEU1 cable release accessory that also connects to the USB port. With the camera in your hands, you'll notice two very welcome control changes. The old front finger dial of the previous 950, which was too indented for my liking, has been swapped for a more substantial rear thumb dial with much more positive clicks. Meanwhile, a new joypad on the rear makes selections and navigation much easier. By moving the ports from the top surface, the 990 also now boasts a much larger LCD information panel, providing even more shooting details at a glance than before. For composition, you still have the choice of an optical viewfinder on the left-hand side or a screen on the right. The viewfinder appears to be the same a basic system as the earlier 950, with little more than a focus mark in the middle and a line to the side to roughly indicate parallax when shooting at closer range. For much more accurate framing, simply turn to the screen, interestingly now employing a slightly smaller 1.8-inch panel versus the 2-inch panel of the 950, but now much brighter, making it more usable in bright conditions. The monitor button cycles between a clean view, one with shooting details, or off entirely to save power. There's sadly no alignment grid or live histogram options, but turning the thumb wheel during playback can show extended shooting details on multiple pages, as well as a thumbnail view with a brightness histogram and blinking highlights. Now, Nikon's well known for its high quality lenses, and the new optics in the COOLPIX 990 don't disappoint. The 3x optical zoom is equivalent to 38 to 115mm with an f2.5 to 4 aperture. Optical zooming is now faster than before, and you can even preset the starting position of the zoom from the menus. Handy. The 990 can also now choose between 5 autofocusing areas, and the AF speed has not only improved but now employs much finer increments too. Nikon proudly states there's no fewer than 4,896 autofocusing steps, not to mention 50 presets in manual focus, way more than its year 2000 rivals. That said, the AF system does sound louder than before, with the 990 chattering away quite audibly when set to continuous autofocus or in the auto mode. Like its predecessor, the 990 will focus amazingly close to your subject, down to just 2cm with impressively low distortion. That's enough to fill an image with a frame of 35mm film, and Nikon actually sells an optional E28 slide scanning accessory to do just that, which on the 990 lets you generate 3MP files from 35mm film. Speaking of accessories, the 990 also supports a selection of lens converters. The TC-E2 and E3-ED double and triple the effective reach. The WC-E24 and E63 widen it by 2/3, while the FC-E8 fisheye converter provides a taste of the exotic with a 183-degree field of view. As a higher-end model aimed at enthusiasts, the 990 offers full control over the exposure. Set the collar power control to M, then hold down the mode button while turning the thumb wheel to switch between program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and full manual. A new motor-driven 7-blade iris diaphragm offers 10 aperture settings from f2.5 to f7 and fine control over the depth of field in aperture priority mode. Meanwhile, no fewer than 14 shutter speeds from 1,000th of a second to 8 seconds are available, while the full manual mode unlocks a bulb setting that lets you achieve up to 60-second exposures. Alternatively, the automatic program mode does a great job, especially coupled with the 256 segment matrix metering system, although there's also center weighted and spot metering if you prefer. In addition, you can also apply exposure compensation in a plus or minus 2 EV range. There's optional 5-step bracketing and Nikon's own best shot selector mode just to make sure. The built-in flash to the side of the lens can be forced on, off, reduce red eye, slow sync or fill in, and as before there's a PC sync terminal to connect to selected external Nikon speedlights. Behind the lens is a 1/1.8 inch type CCD sensor with 3.34 megapixels, making the 990 not only Nikon's first consumer camera to use this sensor, but one of the first on the market from anyone. Later in the year 2000, the same sensor would be found in countless rival models, including Canon's PowerShot G1 and Sony's CyberShot S70. Along with the full 2048 by 1536 pixels in the 4x3 shape and a slightly cropped 3x2 mode, the 990 also offers lower 1024 by 768 and 640 by 480 modes to save a bit of space. There's the choice of 3 levels of JPEG compression, the best quality producing files measuring just over 1MB each in the full 3MP mode. There's also an uncompressed TIFF mode, which produces pretty hefty 9MB files, but recording them can take between 30 and 40 seconds. Sadly, there's no RAW mode as seen on the later Canon G1. Nikon supplies the standard 990 with a 16MB compact flash memory card, which will store around 10, 20 or 40 highest resolution pictures depending on the compression level. The sensitivity runs between 100 and 400 ISO with an auto mode if preferred. Here's a closer look at the quality at 100 ISO, followed by 200 ISO, and finally at the top sensitivity at 400 ISO. The 990 also becomes Nikon's first digital camera to feature a movie mode, which can grab up to 40 seconds of 320 by 240 pixel video at 15 frames per second and save them as motion JPEG QuickTime files. There's no sound recorded with them, but you can use the zoom while filming. Strangely, while the image will flip to stay upright when you're shooting stills with the lens facing back towards you, pioneering vloggers will be disappointed to discover the video is recorded upside down when the lens is pointing back at you, so you're going to need to flip it in post. And finally, there's a selection of burst capture modes, including a high-speed option, which takes up to 80 QVGA images at 30 frames per second. Hang on, that sounds a bit like video. Fast forward the best part of 25 years after it was launched, and the COOLPIX 990 is an easy vintage camera to get working again. Powered by readily available AA batteries, there's no mucking around with proprietary lithium-ion packs and chargers, while compatible compact flash cards do remain on sale. I used my trusty SanDisk Ultra 2 1GB card, which had enough space for hundreds of best quality images. Now, I didn't have the USB cable or original software, but there's no need, as you can simply insert the memory card into a USB compact flash reader, and again, those are readily available too. So, without further ado, let's take a break from my customary slideshow of photos taken with the COOLPIX 990 in the present day, as well as some video clips for you. I'll see you in a moment. Nikon's COOLPIX 900 series is one of the most iconic in the history of digital cameras, packing a split body design with high-end features and cutting-edge quality to delight photographic enthusiasts. While the prosumer or bridge camera category was developed as a more affordable alternative to eye-wateringly expensive DSLRs in their early days, the COOLPIX 900 models became highly desirable in their own right. I for one felt almost disappointed or maybe even unfaithful when I could finally afford my first DSLR and bid farewell to these unique stepping stones. Of the four models in the COOLPIX 900 series, my personal favourites are the 950 and the 990, both building upon the original model without the bulk or the proprietary battery of the final 995. I certainly stand by my original PCW recommendation from the year 2000. Both the 950 and 990 are very usable today, running from standard AA batteries and recording onto readily available compact flash memory cards. Now I am seeing prices steadily increase on these models, but at the time I made this video you were still able to find one in fair condition on, say, eBay for around $20 to $40 or pounds. They're great choices for collectors or anyone wanting to try out a decent vintage digital camera from the turn of the millennium. Meanwhile, the 995 has begun to command high prices. Personally, I feel not justified, especially as you're almost certainly going to need to buy a replacement battery pack, plus of course find a charger for that too. Indeed, at the current prices, I'd skip the 995 and consider the subsequent COOLPIX 4500 from 2002, which shares much the same design concept and can still be found at decent prices. It's certainly in some contrast to the later COOLPIX SQ from 2003, which thanks to social media stardom has now rocketed in popularity and priced to become by far the most expensive of all Nikon split body cameras on the used market. Frustrating, as I'd love to bring you a video on that one, but it's unlikely now. So if you see one at a decent price, snap it up, or better still, send it on to me. Nikon's final models with a split body with the S4 in 2005 and S10 in 2006, after which most compacts from Nikon or other manufacturers employed far less interesting designs in my view. Do you miss models like the 900 series as much as I do? As always, I'd love to hear about your first digital camera experiences and the progression to your current model. Did you own or lust after one of the Nikon split body models as I did? I couldn't afford one at the time, so I was delighted to add a 950 and 4500 to my own collection for less than 50 quid in total. And if you enjoy these videos, please do consider giving my channel a follow and checking out more of the videos here, as it really does help this channel grow. And if you've got any requests for future retro reviews, do let me know in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.